I knew something was wrong the moment Marcus called me into his office on a Friday afternoon. After 18 years at Horizon Software Solutions, you develop a sense for these things. The timing, the way his secretary avoided eye contact, the closed blinds in his usually open office, it all spelled trouble. "James, take a seat," Marcus said, not looking up from his computer. I settled into the familiar leather chair across from his desk, the same chair where we discussed countless projects and celebrated numerous successes over the years. The irony wasn't lost on me. "I'll get straight to the point," he continued, finally meeting my eyes. "We're making some changes to the development division. Sarah will be taking over as Director of Engineering, effective Monday." Sarah, his daughter, fresh out of business school with a minor in computer science and exactly 0 years of real-world experience, I kept my expression neutral, even as my stomach tightened. "I see," I said carefully. "And my role?" Marcus leaned back, a hint of smugness playing at the corners of his mouth. "Well, James, times are changing. The industry is evolving. We need fresh perspectives, new energy. Someone who understands modern development practices." I almost laughed. I had literally written the book on modern development practices. My research papers were required reading at 3 universities. But I stayed quiet, waiting for him to finish. "I think it's time for you to consider retirement," he said, trying to sound sympathetic and failing miserably. "You've had a good run, but let's be honest. You're not exactly in touch with where technology is heading." The words stung, but not for the reason he probably thought. It wasn't the insult to my capabilities that hurt. I knew my worth. It was the realization that 18 years of loyalty meant nothing to him. All those late nights, missed family events, emergency fixes during vacations, none of it mattered. "Of course," I replied, my voice steady. "I assume you have the paperwork ready." He slid a manila folder across the desk. "HR has prepared a generous severance package, 2 months' salary, health benefits through the end of the quarter." He paused, then added with what he probably thought was kindness, "You can clean out your desk over the weekend if you prefer to avoid awkwardness." I opened the folder, scanned the contents briefly, then closed it again. "That won't be necessary. I can do it now." Marcus blinked, clearly surprised by my calm acceptance. He had probably expected an argument, maybe even begging. He didn't understand that I had seen this coming months ago, when Sarah first started shadowing different departments. I stood tucking the folder under my arm. "Will there be anything else?" "Actually," he shifted slightly, "we'll need you to do a complete handover of all project files and documentation. Sarah will need access to everything you've been working on." I smiled. "Of course, all my files are properly archived and documented. Sarah will find everything she needs." Something in my tone made him pause, but he couldn't quite place what it was. "Good, good," he said, already turning back to his computer. "Well, best of luck, James. Time to let the younger generation take the reins, eh?" I nodded and walked out, closing the door softly behind me. As I headed to my office, I could feel the eyes of my team on me. Word traveled fast in tech companies, and everyone knew what a closed-door meeting with Marcus meant these days. My office was a testament to 18 years of dedicated work. Awards lined the walls, technical manuals filled the shelves, and my whiteboard was covered in complex system architecture diagrams. I started packing methodically, carefully selecting what to take and what to leave. Thomas, my lead developer, appeared in the doorway. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. "Yes," I replied, not looking up from my packing. "Sarah starts Monday." "This is bullshit," Thomas spat. "She doesn't know the first thing about our systems. The Nexus project alone." I held up a hand, stopping him. "It is what it is, Thomas. Sometimes change is necessary." He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. In 18 years, he'd never heard me accept defeat so easily. "That's it. You're just going to let them push you out?" I finally looked up at him, allowing a small smile. "Trust me, Thomas. Everything is exactly as it should be." As I continued packing, more team members stopped by. Some offered condolences, others expressed their outrage, and a few even threatened to quit in solidarity. I thanked them all but encouraged them to stay. They would understand soon enough. By 6 p.m., my office was cleared except for my laptop and a single USB drive. I sat down at my desk one last time and began the process I had prepared for months ago. First, I transferred all current project files to the main server, meticulously organized and documented. Sarah would find everything exactly where it should be, labeled clearly and professionally. Then I inserted the USB drive and ran a small program I had written. It didn't delete anything. I was too professional for that. It simply organized all my archived files, the ones I had kept backed up separately over the years. 18 years of documentation, emails, decisions, and most importantly, mistakes. Every rushed deadline that compromised security. Every corner cut to save costs. Every major client complaint that was buried. Every financial irregularity that was creatively resolved. All meticulously documented, dated, and preserved by the one person everyone trusted to handle the technical details they didn't want to understand. I had never planned to use this information. It was just my natural tendency to document everything, to keep clear records. But Marcus had made his choice, and now he would have to live with it. As I drove home that evening, I thought about Sarah. She wasn't a bad person, just young, inexperienced, and privileged. She had no idea what she was walking into. Part of me felt guilty about what Monday would bring, but I squashed that feeling quickly. Sometimes the best lessons come from diving into the deep end. My wife Catherine was waiting when I got home, concern evident on her face. How did it go? I hung up my coat and kissed her cheek. Exactly as expected, Sarah takes over on Monday. Oh, James, she sighed, pulling me into a hug. I'm so sorry. What are you going to do? I hugged her back, breathing in the familiar comfort of home. Nothing, I said. Absolutely nothing. She pulled back, studying my face. After 25 years of marriage, she knew me too well. What are you telling me? I smiled. Let's just say Monday is going to be very interesting. That weekend was surprisingly peaceful. I caught up on reading, did some gardening, and enjoyed long walks with Catherine. I didn't check my email, didn't take any calls from concerned colleagues. Instead, I waited. On Sunday evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Sarah's here. Already making changes. Says our development process is outdated and needs modern agile transformation. Monday stand-up is now at 8 a.m. I sent back a thumbs-up emoji and turned off my phone. Tomorrow would come soon enough, and with it, the beginning of what promised to be a very enlightening week for Sarah, Marcus, and the entire company. As I lay in bed that night, I thought about the exact moment I had started preparing for this. It was 6 months ago during a board meeting where Marcus had first floated the idea of succession planning and youth leadership. I had seen the writing on the wall then, but instead of fighting it, I had simply started getting ready. Every file, every document, every decision point, all carefully preserved and organized. Not as a weapon, but as a record. A history that couldn't be ignored or explained away. Tomorrow, Sarah would start digging through those files, eager to prove her worth by modernizing our outdated systems. And when she did, she would find exactly what I had left for her to find. Monday morning arrived with a flurry of urgent text messages from my former team members. I sat in my home office, sipping coffee and watching my phone light up with updates. Sarah's going through your project files, Thomas texted. She keeps muttering about legacy systems and technical debt. You should see her face, though. Something's got her rattled. I smiled, imagining the scene. The Nexus project files would have been her first stop, our flagship product, the one that generated 60% of company revenue. She would have opened them expecting to find outdated code and inefficient processes. Instead, she found something far more interesting. At 9:47 a.m., my phone rang. Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. At 10:15 a.m., another text from Thomas. Emergency meeting called. Senior management only. Sarah looked pale when she walked in. I could picture the meeting room, the same one where I'd sat through countless discussions over the years. The same room where, 3 years ago, Marcus had authorized a major shortcut in the Nexus project's security protocols to meet a deadline. The documentation of that decision, complete with risk assessments and my formal objections, would be sitting right at the top of Sarah's review folder. At 11:30 a.m., an email arrived from Sarah herself. James, there seem to be some concerning irregularities in the project documentation. Could we discuss these files? It's rather urgent. Sarah. I didn't reply. She had everything she needed right in front of her. 18 years of meticulous records, each decision documented, each compromise noted, each risk logged and tracked. By lunch, the messages had become more frantic. 3 missed calls from Marcus, 2 from our legal department, and 1 from the board chairman himself. I turned my phone to silent and went to make a sandwich. Catherine found me in the kitchen. "Everything okay?" she asked, eyeing my buzzing phone on the counter. "Just fine," I replied, slicing tomatoes. "They're going through the files." She raised an eyebrow. And they're discovering that an outdated engineer who documents everything can be quite inconvenient. Around 2 p.m., Thomas sent another update. "Holy shit, James. Sarah's locked herself in her office, your old office. Marcus has been in there for an hour. Never seen him look so worried." I could imagine why. By now, they would have found the files about the Watson account, our second largest client. The one whose data security requirements we had quietly sidestepped last year because Marcus wanted to fast-track the contract. My emails warning about potential regulatory violations were all there, along with Marcus's explicit instructions to make it work anyway. At 3:30 p.m., a more formal email arrived from Marcus. "James, we urgently need to discuss some historical project documentation. Please call me immediately. This is of utmost importance." Marcus. I archived the email without replying. They weren't looking for explanations. They were looking for a way to contain the situation. But that wouldn't be possible. I had been too thorough, too detailed in my documentation. By the end of the day, Thomas reported that Sarah had left early, looking shaken. Marcus was still in the office, on the phone with what appeared to be legal counsel. The board chairman had made an unexpected visit. I closed my laptop and joined Catherine in the garden. She was tending to her roses but looked up when I approached. "Good day?" she asked with a knowing smile. "Productive," I replied, settling into a garden chair. "Though not for everyone." She studied me for a moment. "You're not going to tell me what's in those files, are you?" I shook my head. "Better that you don't know the details. Let's just say Sarah's getting a crash course in why experience matters." That evening, as we were preparing for bed, my phone lit up with one final message. This one from a number I didn't recognize. It was from the board chairman. "Mr. Reynolds, I believe we need to have a serious discussion of the company's technical documentation. Would you be available for a meeting tomorrow morning? This situation requires immediate attention." I set my phone aside without responding. Tomorrow would come soon enough, and with it, more revelations. Sarah would keep digging, thinking she could find a way to minimize the issues. Instead, she would only uncover more problems, more compromises, more decisions that shouldn't have been made. Marcus had wanted to push me out, thinking my age made me a liability. He had given my position to his daughter, assuming she could easily step in and modernize everything. Instead, he had handed her a ticking time bomb. One made not of malice, but of simple, meticulous documentation. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about Sarah, probably still awake and poring over files, trying to understand the full scope of what she had inherited. In a way, I had given her the best possible education, a real-world lesson in why cutting corners and ignoring experience always has consequences. Tomorrow would bring more revelations, more panic, more desperate attempts to contain the situation. But for now, I slept soundly, knowing that sometimes the best revenge isn't taking action. It's simply letting the truth speak for itself. Tuesday morning dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully, selecting a crisp charcoal suit I rarely wore to the office. The board chairman's message sat unanswered on my phone, but I knew exactly where I was going. As I pulled into the company parking lot at 9:45 a.m., I noticed several unfamiliar cars in the executive spaces. A black town car idled near the entrance, probably belonging to the company's outside counsel. The receptionist's eyes widened when I walked in. "Mr. Reynolds, they're waiting for you in the main conference room." I nodded, taking my time walking through the familiar corridors. Employees stopped and stared as I passed, whispering among themselves. Through the glass walls of the development area, I saw my former team watching intently. Thomas gave me a subtle thumbs up. The main conference room was packed when I entered. The entire board of directors sat along one side of the table, looking grave. Marcus and Sarah occupied the other side. Sarah pale and tense, Marcus trying to maintain his usual confident demeanor but failing. Two lawyers I didn't recognize sat near the door, papers spread before them. James, the board chairman, William Porter, stood to greet me. "Thank you for coming in." I took the empty seat at the end of the table, directly facing William. "Of course. How can I help?" William cleared his throat. "We've been reviewing some concerning documentation that Sarah discovered yesterday. Files that raise serious questions about certain company decisions and practices. All properly documented and archived, I said calmly. As per company policy. Marcus leaned forward. James, be reasonable. These files could seriously damage the company if they got out. Surely we can discuss. Marcus, William cut him off sharply. Please, he turned back to me. James, how many people have access to these records? Just the development team leadership, I replied. And now Sarah, of course. As the new director of engineering, she has full access to all project documentation. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She hadn't expected her first week to involve discovering years of questionable decisions and potential regulatory violations. The Watson contract, one of the lawyers spoke up. The security compliance issues you documented, has the client been made aware? I shook my head. That would have been a management decision. I simply documented the technical implications and risks. Marcus's face darkened. You knew these records could hurt us. You deliberately kept these files to what? I interrupted mildly. To maintain accurate project documentation, to ensure we had clear records of all technical decisions and their potential implications. Isn't that exactly what you've always praised me for, Marcus? The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implicit message. I hadn't done anything wrong. I had simply been thorough in my record keeping. William leaned forward. James, what do you want? Want? I raised an eyebrow. I'm retired, remember. These aren't my problems anymore. Dad, Sarah spoke for the first time, her voice tight. The Nexus project specifications, the security shortcuts we took, if our clients audit those systems. They won't? Marcus snapped. No one audits that deeply. Watson does, one of the lawyers interjected. Their new cybersecurity team performs quarterly deep audits. They're scheduled for one next month. The color drained from Marcus's face. Watson was our biggest client, the one he pushed hardest to land, the one whose security requirements he'd ordered us to work around. William studied me carefully. James, you've been with this company 18 years. You helped build it. Surely we can find a way to address these issues constructively. I met his gaze steadily. The issues are clearly documented. Sarah has all the information she needs to understand what needs to be fixed. Isn't that why you wanted someone younger? Someone with fresh perspectives? Sarah looked like she might be sick. She understood now what she had inherited, not just a prestigious title, but years of technical debt and compromised standards that she would have to answer for. We could deny knowledge, one of the lawyers suggested. Remove the documentation, claim it was unauthorized. No, William cut him off. That would only make things worse. He turned back to me. What would you recommend, James? Speaking as someone who knows these systems inside and out. I allowed myself a small smile. Finally, someone was asking the right question. A complete security audit, I said. Transparent disclosure to affected clients. Immediate remediation of all identified issues. I paused. And of course, experienced leadership to oversee the process. The message was clear. They needed me, not as a retiring veteran to be pushed aside, but as the one person who could help them fix this mess. And if we agree to this? William asked. Then I'm happy to consult, I replied. At appropriate market rates, of course, with full authority over technical decisions. Marcus started to object, but William silenced him with a look. Everyone in the room knew they had no choice. The alternative was watching their biggest clients discover the issues on their own, a scenario that would be far worse. We'll have a contract drawn up, William said. Full autonomy on technical decisions, reporting directly to the board. I nodded and stood. I'll expect it by tomorrow. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some gardening to catch up on. As I walked out, I caught a glimpse of Sarah's face. She looked shell-shocked, finally understanding the true cost of assuming that age equaled obsolescence. The next 6 months brought dramatic changes to Horizon Software Solutions. I returned not as an employee, but as a highly paid consultant with direct authority over technical decisions. My first action was to implement a comprehensive security audit of all major systems, particularly the Nexus project. The results were exactly as I had documented: critical security vulnerabilities, compromised compliance standards, and technical debt that would take months to address. But this time, there was no hiding the issues, no cutting corners to meet deadlines. Sarah, to her credit, adapted quickly. Once she got over her initial shock, she proved to be a quick learner. I found her in my temporary office one morning, looking uncomfortable but determined. "I owe you an apology," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. I was arrogant. I thought because I knew the latest development methodologies, I understood everything I needed to know. I nodded, appreciating her honesty. "The latest methods are important," I replied. "But they're tools, not solutions. The real skill is knowing when and how to use them." She hesitated, then asked, "Will you teach me?" "Not just the technical aspects, but everything else. The client relationships, the risk assessment, all of it." I studied her for a moment. "On one condition," I said finally. "You have to understand that experience isn't a liability. It's an asset that no amount of theoretical knowledge can replace." She nodded earnestly. "I understand that now, better than ever." And so began an unexpected mentorship. Sarah proved to be an attentive student, eager to learn and quick to understand the complexities of managing enterprise-level software development. She had good instincts, she just needed guidance to develop them properly. Marcus, on the other hand, found his role significantly diminished. The board had lost confidence in his judgment, particularly after our audit revealed the full scope of the technical compromises he had pushed for. He spent most of his time in his office, doors closed, probably updating his resume. 3 months into the remediation project, we faced our first major test. Watson's security team arrived for their quarterly audit. Instead of trying to hide our issues, we presented them with a comprehensive report detailing the problems we had found and the steps we were taking to fix them. "This is unusually thorough," their lead auditor commented, reviewing our documentation. "Most companies try to hide their problems. You're laying them all out, with detailed correction plans. Transparency builds trust," I replied, echoing words I had once tried to tell Marcus. "We'd rather you know what we're fixing than discover what we're hiding." The Watson team was impressed, not just with our honesty, but with the systematic way we were addressing the issues. They extended their contract for another 3 years, with an increased budget for security improvements. Other clients followed suit. Our reputation actually improved, not because we were perfect, but because we were honest about our imperfections and professional about fixing them. One Tuesday morning, about 5 months into my consulting contract, William called me into his office. "James," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "The board has been discussing the company's future leadership." I nodded, having expected this conversation. "And?" "Marcus has submitted his resignation, effective at the end of the month." William paused. "We'd like to restructure the technical leadership. Create a new position, Chief Technology Officer, reporting directly to the board." I waited, knowing what was coming. "We'd like you to take the role," he continued. "Not as a consultant, but as a permanent executive. Full autonomy over technical decisions, oversight of all development and security operations." I considered the offer. "And Sarah?" "She would continue as Director of Engineering, reporting to you." William leaned forward. "She specifically requested that arrangement, said she has more to learn." I smiled slightly. "And what does Marcus think about all this?" "Marcus's opinion is no longer relevant to company decisions," William replied firmly. "We've learned our lesson about valuing the wrong things." I took a moment before responding. "I'll consider it, on one condition." "Name it." "I want to establish a formal mentorship program. Pair our experienced engineers with younger talent. Ensure we're building institutional knowledge, not just code." William smiled. "Already thinking like a CTO. When can you start?" The changes that followed transformed the company. We established clear technical governance, implemented proper security protocols, and created a culture that valued both innovation and experience. Sarah thrived in her role, combining her fresh perspectives with the wisdom she gained through mentorship. 6 months after I accepted the CTO position, I passed Marcus in the hallway on his last day. He looked older, tired, his usual confidence replaced by resignation. "I suppose you planned this all along," he said, stopping briefly. I shook my head. "No, Marcus, I just did my job thoroughly. You're the one who decided that was a liability." He nodded slowly. "Sarah, she speaks highly of you now. Says she's learned more in 6 months than she did in 4 years of college." "She's a good engineer," I replied. "She just needed to understand that experience matters." Marcus picked up his box of personal items. "Well, congratulations on the promotion. You won." I watched him walk away, feeling no satisfaction in his defeat. It hadn't been about winning or losing, it had been about doing things right, about valuing the knowledge that only comes with time and experience. That evening, as I packed up my new office, with a view of the city, Thomas knocked on the door. Quite a turnaround, he said, leaning against the doorframe. From forced retirement to CTO in 6 months. I smiled. Sometimes the best response to being undervalued is simply to let people discover your value on their own. And Sarah? Is learning, I replied. Sometimes the younger generation needs to understand that innovation isn't about discarding the past. It's about building on it. As I drove home that evening, I thought about the lessons of the past 6 months. Marcus had believed he was modernizing the company by pushing out the old guard. Instead, he had nearly destroyed it by undervaluing experience. Sarah had thought she knew everything she needed to know, only to discover that real knowledge comes from years of hands-on experience. And me? I had learned something too. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about proving your worth in a way that can't be ignored. Catherine was waiting when I got home, a knowing smile on her face. Good last day as a consultant. Very good, I replied, hanging up my coat. Though it seems retirement will have to wait a bit longer. She laughed. Somehow, I don't think you mind. I didn't. The company was stronger now, built on a foundation of both innovation and experience. Sarah was growing into a capable leader, one who understood the value of learning from those who came before her. And me? I was exactly where I needed to be, building systems that worked, mentoring the next generation, and proving that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. After all, experience isn't just about age, it's about wisdom. And wisdom, as Marcus learned the hard way, is something you can't replace with a fresh perspective and a business degree.